gorgeous.
Hang on one sec. Hang on. I think it's recording. Here we go. So, Randall, thank you so much for joining me. Randall Waller, musician, engineer, producer of various bands. So yeah, just thank you for joining me on my music vlog about all things music.
Good. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be. Let's make it quick. My time is money. I'm a very busy man.
So Randall,
If only.
one of my first questions was, I am currently looking at the Carring Bar Inn. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah,
ask you
yeah.
of kind of, I was going to say memories, but I might just say highlights of the Carring Bar Inn. When you were in the car on your way to the Carring Bar Inn, was one of the first times you heard an Avion song on the radio. Is that true?
We were headed down that way because we've all, my parents moved to Sydney when I
Yeah.
was 8,
Yeah.
and they moved up to a little place called Killarney Heights that most people haven't heard of. And so I grew up there through no choice of my own, just it was all I knew. I was 8
Yeah.
years old, what do I know? We lived in that house for a long, long time, and we rehearsed in the basement of the house as kids when we put the band together. And so we would usually have long drives down to the Shire because for some reason, whatever we did tended to resonate down there. And it's hard to sort of even quantify how or why.
Yeah.
But we pulled into the Shell service station there on the main
Kingsway.
Yeah, around about there. Yes.
Yeah.
Pulled in there and they played it on 2SM. And
Oh, how exciting.
oh my gosh, we thought we were kings.
Absolutely.
And we weren't. But it was just such an exciting experience. But then also we loved playing down that direction because, as I said, inexplicably, it seemed to find like kind ears down there for some reason.
I was reading that in those early 80s or 84, even 85, it was one of the most popular gigs or venues, I should say, in Sydney. Yeah, I guess that whole experience with Avion and during that period where you were able to play, for example, in a week, 5 days, for 5 nights, even 6.
Yeah. No, in fact, I was gonna mention to you that the when you saw us at Lidcombe Oval on that rock,
Eureka
I think
Rock.
Dragon, the Tats, Radiators, us, and who was the other one you met?
The Expression.
And they were great. Yeah, so good. So, and I think we were first on. We were lowly, but we got a seat, and it was we were just glad to be there. That was the last gig in a run of 21 shows in 20 days.
Oh, wow.
And in that 20 days, check this out. We drove to Brisbane, played a bunch of shows there, down to the Gold Coast, back to Brisbane, up to Hervey Bay, back down to Brisbane, down to Sydney, then played a week in Sydney, then down to Melbourne, came back. Look, I might be wrong with the order, but came back and played Canberra. Played Canberra, went back to Sydney, then down to Melbourne, then back to Sydney via Katoomba, where we played that day, and then did a double that night, and then Lidcombe was the next day.
Amazing.
It was 21 in 20 days, and thousands and we're just driving down.
Yeah.
We're like a little Mitsubishi van, It was,
and that's well, it's good that you're mentioning that because it even leads me on to my next question, where is it harder because you guys were playing so often, so regularly, and kind of just building this skill and this, just performances in front of audiences. Do you reckon these days now, all these years later, do you think it might be harder for young kids to kind of get the chops they need if they want to kind of maybe fly overseas and try their hand at global sort of success? I always sort of thought it's got to be harder for them.
This is your university,
yeah, absolutely.
It was our uni, and we always copped stink from industry type people, radio stations, thinking that we hadn't paid our dues. Our manager booked a gig, our own gig, at the Capitol Theatre in late '83, and because we grew up in church, and once again, it was no choice of our own, and I feel like I've sort of been in recovery in some ways since, and I still hold certain beliefs as sacrosanct, but I also felt like I was led up the garden path in a lot of ways. But we never mentioned anything about our background, or we were never proselytizing in any way. We were just a rock band. We were just a bunch of, with some great mates, and doing what we loved. It's as simple as. What I did mention to you a little while ago is that we also did in that year, in '83, we did 226 shows. We would regularly go to Melbourne and play. We'd drive down to Melbourne on a Monday. We'd play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, double on Friday, double on Saturday, and home on Sunday.
Wow.
2 gigs that each night. I remember lying down at the Chevron one night in Melbourne and just
exhausted,
holding my throat, and I had to really manage my voice very, very carefully. The music industry is like a drunk punter. It's become like this, where they're waiting for the next winner of whatever the game show is to roll off the assembly line and do the album with them and release their first single, and if it doesn't go well, okay, we might give the second single a go, and then the album's shelved, and they're gone. It's over. And then they put them on the road, and they're meant to be playing with all of the other contestants in the game show, at the entertainment centre or something. Mate, I used to dream of I went and saw Deep Purple at the Hordern Pavilion, and I dreamt of playing at the Hordern Pavilion, and played many, many times there. But I still think it was a psychological lead up for me to build towards that, and so that I would be thinking when we played at Caringbah or Sylvania or the Metro or the Tivoli in the city, I'd be thinking, okay, I've got to keep that in mind when we do that. When we, even when we get to play at the Hordern, I need to make sure that when we go around there, and I'm going to go over, and it was just tucked away, And I still think, when we played those places, we were still a middling band. We were never a Cold Chisel or anything. We were just we were good. Sometimes there were great moments, and we weren't rubbish. We were just we were in the middle there, and that is the whole strata of music that is gone now. That middle strata where you could sort of eke out a bit of a living with you and your crew and your sound guy, have a PA, and now that whole level, you either, you're sort of John Farnham, not so much John Farnham these days, but I think he's coming back, whatever. But you're up in those tiers, Tame Impala or whatever, and then you're playing covers in the corner to a pub of people that don't give a shit. And your wallpaper,
I do feel that there was just a lot more scope for honing those skills and developing developing the craft. Do you think working to different audiences as you have all over the world, Shania Twain and all the others that
she was singing in my band, in
your band. Do you reckon that Australian audiences are more kind of honest, in your face, and like if they don't like you, they kind of tell you?
All right, let's calm down. Boys and girls, anyone who pushes and carries on down there, I'll throw them out myself.
don't they? Do you think that's different to international audiences in your experience?
The easiest audiences are Americans, and because British audiences are okay, but American audiences are polite to a fault, and they will love you even if you're only okay.
Oh, wow.
But I do love that about American audiences. What musician wouldn't love that?
Absolutely.
To play to an enthusiastic crowd that is ready to be entertained. Now, in fairness, the whole culture of entertainment in America is completely different to ours. Mm-hmm. We used to wear like stripy singlets and stuff that we would see American bands wear back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we would cop things like, oh, you fucking wanker. Who do you think you are? I'm sorry about that. But I would say things like that. And you just think, well, but I'm watching these great bands that are playing around the world, and they're way more ostentatious than we are, way more out there than us. But we were just trying to push the limit a little bit, and try to be entertaining and fun and interesting and all of that. Australian audiences don't seem to resonate with that. They didn't back then. Because it was Cold Chisel, it was Barnsey screaming his lungs out and Moss playing incredible stuff and singing his heart out, and they're just in jeans and t-shirts, and that's what pub rock has tended to be. Sort of part of our culture. Whereas in America, on the second Shania tour, she spent that stage cost, it was $250,000 before we played a note in this cast aluminium amazing stage. But Americans know that when they go to see their heroes, so Cold Chisel were like, they were my heroes. I love Chisel and Angels, all that. What Americans go to see when they go to see their heroes, they know that when they pay their 100, whatever it was back then, 100 to go and see a show, they knew that there was going to be a show. Yeah. Right? It was no muck and it was no holds barred. It was big entertainment, and Americans just do that incredibly well. Yeah. And I count myself as being incredibly privileged, not only to have been a part of that, but specifically to have been a part of that with Shania, because a lot of the country bands back then, country singers would have a band who was dressed in black and pushed down the back, and the singer would walk side to side on the stage, and think that, well, this is entertaining enough, and me and my bandmates, we would just go like half an hour and just go, nah. And Shania would say to us, guys, don't ever feel scared about stepping on my, raining on my parade or being too much, or like entertain the crowd, go hard, because you know that they are there to see me, and that's all that matters, and they're going to see me, and I'm going to be walking around, I'm going to be doing my thing, and so it takes the weight off me if you are performing and entertain the crowd as well.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So how privileged was I to be a part of that?
How amazing. Was that about 5 years you were with that band? Or she was with your band?
It was over. Silly. It's silliness. It was from beginning of 98 through to the we came back in 05, and in between the Come On Over tour and the Up tour was a spread of about 2.5 years where I played with other people, Kieth.
Kieth Urban. And you did the SUPERBOWL. Did you do the SUPERBOWL?
We did the SUPERBOWL, yeah.
My goodness.
That was one of the first things we did on the second tour.
Wow, how amazing.
for so many
Yeah, it
musics.
is. Yeah,
What was that like?
Look at that. That guy was desperate to have his photo taken with him. Some random, I don't even know who he was. Look,
Shania would be pretty nervous about going on to belt her lungs
Yes,
out
she was.
in front of that many people. But
Yep.
but you, standing there, we can see you strumming away behind.
Yeah.
What's it like, the pre-game?
Pretty surreal.
Oh goodness, and I guess just that whole exposure to different crowds all over the world. Surely, yeah, you've got to sit back and just love your life.
How lucky was it?
Absolutely.
You know, what's funny about the Super Bowl? I couldn't even stay because they were running a little bit late, and I don't know why that is, because they're pretty scheduled. Maybe the first two quarters went longer than expected or something, whatever. Anyway, I heard Sting singing as I was escorted out of the football stadium, and there was a bus waiting for me to drive me to a car that I'd rented to drive to LAX because I had to catch a flight back to Brisbane, where I had a dentist appointment to pull out a wisdom tooth. So I get back to the car, and it was a Mustang. It went okay, but
nice.
only all right. But I sat on 100 miles an hour up the 405, the 5 and the 405 to LAX, and I got there, and they said, "Oh, sorry, sir, the flight's closed." I said, "It's 7 o'clock." Air New Zealand. Anyway. So I got on the flight to Sydney. As soon as I got to Sydney, bought another ticket and go up to Brisbane. My now wife picked me up, and I went and had my wisdom tooth out sit down in the dentist chair at 10 o'clock in the morning, whatever.
Yeah.
And they said, "So what have you been up to?" I said, "Okay. Well, I played at the Super Bowl about 18 hours ago." And they went, "Yeah."
What a story. Honestly,
Actually, I don't think they believe.
In regards to every other sort of, out of the, 250 odd venues that, for example, were around in Sydney, like the Manly Vale and the Mona Vale Hotel, all of them.
Yeah, Mona Vale, yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, everyone's sort of got their own thoughts on the closures, and pokies is a big one. And I also think real estate and greed is another one.
Yeah. Well, it started back in the later 80s with fire regulations and noise regulations.
Yeah.
People who lived near pubs gained the upper hand for some reason. It's a little bit like, what's his name, Frank Seidler, who bought an apartment near Luna Park and then complained that there was lots of screaming from the big district.
I've seen those apartments there, yeah.
What did you think? Well-to-do people whinged about it. It went away. And that is a microcosm of what's happened. As soon as people move into an entertainment district, they expect it to be pristine and silent and livable, and I just think that's fucking unabidable. I think it's absolute disgrace, and it's killing the culture.
Well, a pub in Sydney's inner west. I can't believe this story.
It's crazy.
It's the inner west as well. It's cool inner west. It's facing closure this morning after repeated noise complaints from neighbours. They've pushed it to the brink. The Great Club, which has been in Marrickville since 1952.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well, that's what I think. I do believe we need more. I know that in Sydney, Marrickville's a big sort of place now where it's got quite a large concentration of them, but I still think we need a lot more.
If you're going to have 500 people in here watching Cold Chisel, well, then you've got to make access for them to get out of there. Okay, well, if you're going to have Cold Chisel in there, you've got to double soundproof the room and, talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a publican who's doing his best to aid the culture, but a lot of people didn't understand that those regulations meant it was just no longer economical for a non to have bands, and so they stopped having bands. Oh well, what are they? Oh well, they can have pokies. Oh, and so it's easy to blame the pokies. Well, is it chicken or egg? It's a bit of.
This weekend, the pub called Last Drinks.
Mathematically, you don't have a choice, but emotionally, it was a hard decision to walk away.
The venue threw in the towel after its public liability insurance went from $35,000 to more than $100,000 a year.
We've never had one claim. And to come back this year and say, you know, it's going to cost you 3 times more than last year, we're like, well, you know what? We're not going to bother.
And I think the government could have stepped in at the time instead of
they could.
yeah, you know, promoting the culture where I'm not saying, you know, that they were favouring sport, but I do believe that
I will.
yeah,
I'll say
they do. I do think they do actually. But I just think that it could have been propped up.
Okay, so the Arts Council of Australia yearly budget is around about $150 million. 55 million of that goes to the biggest cover bands in Australia. Who are they? Who would you think is that? The biggest cover bands in Australia. It's the Sydney Symphony, the Melbourne Symphony, the Adelaide and the West Australian Symphony Orchestras.
Mm.
Do you think they're playing original material?
Absolutely
I don't
not.
think so.
That's the truth,
Those
isn't
are the
it?
biggest cover bands. They get 55 mil.
Yeah.
Because if it was left to them to stand on their own, like Holden or Ford,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
It was okay to let Holden and I'm not saying it's a good idea. I think it's great to have that sort of culture around still.
Yeah. Yep.
Because there's nothing my mates like more than go to see the Sydney Symphony play Bach. But
I see what you're saying there. It's
the
true.
next one
It's true.
Next one is opera. The next one is ballet. And the next one is theatre. And
Yeah.
that's where the budget goes. And there's a few scraps that go to Indigenous, you know, things which should get a lot more.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
None.
sense to me. I want to bring up your new album because I've heard it this week and I just think it kicks ass. It's really hard, fast, exciting, and I felt very, very original, and I just wanted to listen to it again and again. So I wanted to ask you, how's that going?
Well, you know, it's hard because there's a million songs uploaded to Spotify every day.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you rise above the static? I am working on that. I've got a film clip that's just about finished for the first film clip that's going to be done. And then we can get digital promotion people. It seems to be that it's all digital promo these days rather than, you know, there's nowhere to play anymore. And if I did play, I've got to find a band that can play the stuff because it's not simple necessarily.
Yeah, it seems quite complicated. But you've also collaborated with various people like Richard Fortus from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, he's good, mate. In fact,
that's exciting.
He was here with the psychedelic. He's played with the Psychedelic Furs for a long time.
Yep.
And he was here for the Pandemonium Festival. So caught up with G, and I've got Erwin Thomas, who's he goes beast mode on a song. He's
fantastic.
People sort of tend to know him as the singer from Southern Songs.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a guitar player!
He's amazing. Yeah, I've seen him. He's amazing.
Next level.
Yeah.
So I've got my mate Joel McDonald playing on one. I've got my mate Chris
Joel
playing on one.
Oh, that's where else I've seen you. Sorry to interrupt. I've seen you at Frankie's. Frankie's. I've been there, and that's where I was trying to remember I've seen you with Rose Tattoo, Frankie's, Avion, and I think you did some other things that, I just never came and said hello. I should have come and said hello.
You should have. Yeah, of course you should. Having those guys on there make me sound a lot better than I otherwise would.
Yeah, no, so, I loved it. I found it fantastic. I really have. You got a CD there that you can show me? There it is. There. Yeah, perfect.
Change the view here.
It's honestly it needs to be heard.
I'm very intent on lyric content and I don't know if you can see. I don't know, you probably can't. Right up here on this logo here, I've got because I can't see a damn thing. There we go. Up there, up on the left hand side. This is a tattoo that I have here. Right.
Oh, right.
And so there's a B up there for Bridget, our youngest.
Oh, right.
There's an M up there for Mac, our son, middle son. He's 19.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Little S down here for Sophie. There's a big S up here for Skanky, my wife, Susie.
Susie. I love Susie.
A champion. There's a heart, and there's an anchor, and there's essentially a cross, faith, hope, and love. And there's a diamond. That's my printer. So,
and you designed that? Wow.
I did actually design that, and then I got an artist to design it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, how amazing. No, well, congratulations on that. I just think it's wonderful that you're actually even just continuing to produce
keep going.
Musical. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think that's all I've got, Randall. So I might.
I think we've taken up all your time anyway.
Yeah, I've got about a minute left, but I think so. Yeah, I might just stop the recording. Hang on one sec. Pause.